bring in Tony Boselli, who worked radio color for last night's game when Westwood won with the Lions and the Packers. Tony, thanks for joining us. Let me start with the taunting part of this. How much of it is just part of the game, and how much of this should we be getting or trying to get rid of?
Oh, I think it's part of the game. I mean, I think we've gone too far. I mean, I love the fact that fans, media, everybody, complains about players not caring enough. We want emotion and we want guys, getting after it and playing with their hair on fire. But then we want to draw this line that you can't celebrate or express yourself in a intense, physical, emotional game. You can't have it both ways. And I think you have to let guys have a little bit of fun out there. That's part of it. I mean, Dan, growing up playing sports, if you're on the basketball court, playing a pickup game, you're telling me there's no taunting out there? You go drop a three in someone's face, you're letting them know, you get a big block. I mean, we were running our mouths the whole time. And I think the NFL, they're trying to stop it from going to the next level. And so maybe they're trying to get in front of it, but I think they're trying to get in front of it too early. And they've gone too far.
Do linemen talk trash?
Oh, yeah, but you can't. It's harder for them to tell because we're so close together that, we're in the trenches. Things are said. Things are done. There's gamesmanship. I mean, think of some of the all-time greats. I mean, the one that comes, top of mind is John Randall. He's got his face painted up. He's, chatting up the whole time. He used to go read the program and like the bios of guys and start running his mouth and, talking, calling people out. And the problem with John was he could back it up. He'd be beating you up physically and mentally. He had the whole game.
I'm just wondering why now for the NFL. It feels like the NFL goes, hey, nobody's talking about this. Let's talk about this. They did this with what's a catch, what's a football move. Can the ground cause a fumble? I grew up at a time watching the NFL. I never worried about that, thought about that. Now you have all this instant replay now. They don't even get the calls right with instant replay. And now we're going to ask these officials, and you played this game, in a split second, try to tell us what intent is. Like you meant to do something, whether you did or not, and that's going to be 15 yards. I just don't understand. They have so many other things to worry about.
Yeah, I must have missed like the national crisis of taunting going on in the NFL, where there was an outrage and op-eds being written and people like just protesting in the streets because NFL players were talking smack and getting in each other's faces. I agree with you, Dan. I think sometimes we just go too far. Like I think the NFL has done a good job of trying to make the game as safe as possible, which is really a misnomer because football's never going to be safe. But let's take out the headshots. Let's take out leading with the helmet. Let's teach the game the right way. That makes sense. But some of these ancillary things they focus on, I think it's a distraction. I don't think the fans like it. I don't think the fans want it. The last thing you want is because someone gets up and celebrates in someone else's face, you want that to impact or change the outcome of a game. Fans don't want that. Players don't want it. Coaches don't want it. I'm trying to understand who in the New York offices wants this. Like, what made this such a important issue that we needed to address it?
He's Tony Boselli, former Jags offensive tackle, and he was on the call radio-wise for Westwood won last night, Detroit and Green Bay. I guess everything's all good with the Packers?
Oh, it's all fixed. I mean, just ignore what happened. It was almost like they forgot that we were playing 17 regular season games, and they thought that was the fourth preseason game against the Saints opening weekend. It was one of the worst performances. Forget about it being Aaron Rodgers and a team that you expect to challenge to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, it was just bad football. No emotion opening day. Now, I still think they got some significant issues. Aaron Rodgers, by the way, is not one of them. I think that defense does not have a lot of talent. I don't think they can rush the passer. No Zadarius Smith, who's going to be out short term on IR because he's back. He's their best pass rusher. Preston Smith's a nice player, but they don't win up front. I know looking at that game last night that Joe Barry, the new defense coordinator, he can't just rush four and play coverage. And so they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do. And I think they're going to have to outscore people this year if they're going to really have a lot of success.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Can they do that? Because now you go to San Francisco this next week. So New Orleans, it's a nightmare. It's a crisis. 5-alarm fire. Then you beat the Lions, and you're favored by 11. You're supposed to beat them. Nothing happened last night where I went, oh, wow, look at the Packers. Now I want to know how you respond when you go to San Francisco. I think this game will tell me a whole lot more than the first two games of the season. What do you think about that for the Packers going out to San Francisco?
Well, Dan, I think you're right, because if you look at the game last night, I mean, into the third quarter, the Lions had moved the ball up and down the field. The Packers had not been able to really stop them. They're struggling against stopping the run. A bad 4th-and-1 call by the Lions really changed that entire game. Either they kick a field goal there or they convert, and it's a back and forth game. Who knows what happens? They're going to go to San Francisco with San Francisco's beat up in the backfield. They don't have a lot of running backs. I don't know who's going to be back there, but they have a great scheme. Kyle Shanahan is maybe one of the best running game coordinators in all the NFL, and they're going to go after him. And I think that this is a great test for the defense, and also they're playing a good front four. Nick Bosa is only going to get feeling better and better coming off that knee injury. I'm really interested, and I think you're dead on. This is this will be a good barometer to see what kind of Packers team we're going to see this year. But
also, Tampa Bay goes to the Rams as well. You're going to.
Oh, great! I mean, you talk about great games. Tampa Bay is probably the most interesting team to me. I think they're the best all-around team because offense, defense, what they're able to do. And I've been sold. Whatever diet, what's it called, TB12? I'm going to start it tomorrow. Anybody who gets better at 44 and continues, like he's better than he was when he was 24. It's unbelievable. I mean, we talk all the time. Father Time's undefeated. Well, he just took his first L. And Tom Brady's the one who delivered it. And that's a good team. I mean, they got offensive weapons. I think they're not playing great defense yet, but I believe in that defense. So I think you have the Rams with Stafford. Sean McVay's got his guy. That was a big move in the offseason. So two of the better teams in the NFC. Might be a preview of the NFC Championship.
How would it be to block for Brady? Is he the ideal quarterback to block for?
I think so. I think for a left tackle, yeah, because he's so good in the pocket. And what I think gets lost is subtle movements help his offensive line. And so, offensive line maybe gets beat a little bit in the inside. He just shuffles, and he doesn't sprint out of there causing trouble for everybody else. He just shuffles 2 or 3 steps, buys time, and finds, the guy down the field. So he's one of the best ever. Now, there's extra pressure if you're playing offensive line and Tom Brady's back there because you got one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. The last thing you want to be is the guy who gets him knocked around a little bit. But, yeah, he'd be a lot of fun to play for.
What's that like when the quarterback gets sacked and it's because of you? And do you go over and help the quarterback up or say nothing?
No, you want to help him up, but then you realize that you don't want to look up at the video board because you realize they're showing a replay. You're trying to ignore the defense because they're doing some sack dance. And you're just hoping, like, somehow that the guy who's shooting the game, the film guy for your team, like lost that clip so you don't have to watch it tomorrow. It's one of the worst feelings in the entire world because like every bit of focus is on you, and there's and it's not like you play another position, a defensive back or running back or receiver, where you can go make up for it the next play. Like there's nothing I can do on the next play that says, oh, he redeemed himself. No, I just go block the guy and everyone forgets about it.
Did you ever face a defensive lineman and just say, this is it, maybe not overmatched, but I'm in trouble here today?
The closest time ever was we were playing on a Sunday night, and we were good, but we weren't. And we were playing the Vikings, who were great, and John Randall, who I was talking about earlier, was playing defensive end, and we had our third string quarterback, and it went bad early, and I just realized immediately, like, this is not going to be a fun night. It's just gonna be one of those nights when you hope the clock goes really, really fast because we don't have much of a chance to win this game, and it's a bad feeling. And there's nothing worse. Let me say this. There's nothing better. Unfortunately, this was most of my career. This is how I felt most of the career, when you're out there and you feel like you're in complete control and you can do anything you want. And you're just going to dominate the guy. What is very uncomfortable when you're on the edge and you just feel like, I don't know if I have an answer for the test. And you got to be out there. And a lot of it, you can get exposed pretty quickly. in the NFL.
You being a former Jag, I'm curious, how's morale with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tony, after 2 weeks?
Well, you have to ask what group of people are you talking? Fans, organization, or players? Because I think the fans are wringing their hands because you sign, you get Urban Meyer, you get Trevor Lawrence, and there was a buzz, and people were so excited this offseason and camp, and everyone's talking about, here's the new era. And you start the season, you lay an egg against Houston, who everyone thought was the worst team, and then you realize, we got blown out by them. And you look up down the schedule, and this was supposed to be the easy part of your schedule. You lose to the Broncos, you got Arizona, who's playing really good. Then you have to go on Thursday night. After that, you play 7 straight teams with 10, had 10 wins last year. So I think the fans are frustrated. It's a young team. Hopefully they don't know any better, and Urban will be able to keep them kind of on the same page. But it's going to be interesting, Dan. I mean, Urban Meyer hasn't been in this situation ever as a head coach. He's always dominated. He's always won. This is going to be a test for him and his leadership to keep these guys together.
Yeah, but you played at USC. You weren't used to losing. And then you go to Jacksonville, and then you're kind of like, man, I've lost more games in a month than I lost in a season or 2 seasons.
Yeah, as a player, I mean, the way my approach was, and I think a lot of guys are like this, it's kind of twofold. You want to win. That's number one goal. And losing is just miserable. And try losing with Tom Coughlin as your head coach. I mean, that is like extra miserable. Like that's like just prison. It's awful. But at the same time, I always realized, Dan, that I better go perform, because the last thing I wanted to do is, one, let my team down, but I didn't want to be embarrassed. And so there was a fear of not being able to perform at a high level that drove me regardless of what was happening. And so I think if you want to be good and you want to have success in this league, you better take personal pride and ownership in what you do. And you hope that gets guys through the season.
Great to talk to you, and safe travels back home. Thanks for joining us as always, Tony.
Dan, thanks for having me, and anytime.
That's Tony Boselli, former Jaguars offensive tackle, and right now on the doorstep, hopefully, of the Hall of Fame. And he was on the call last night with the Lions and the Packers.